Hello and welcome, everyone. My name is Christine Yogaberry. Welcome to Yogaberry and welcome to Backchat. And it's 4 p.m. In the UK right now. This is my weekly live stream, so it's happening every Wednesday at this time. However, this is the last one of the year, so I'm going to take a little bit of a break after this. And yeah, I've started this. I think it must have been around June, kind of July time when I started this. So yes, we've got quite a bit of a catalog now of interviews and chats that you can look back at if you are new to this show here, which is all about you really, and it's all about scoliosis. And I've really been enjoying this and just chatting with you live. So those of you who are live, feel free to come and say hello. Even if you are watching this afterwards on the replay, I always love to hear your comments, to see if this is resonating with you, what I'm saying here, and also what you're maybe what you would like to see a little bit more of. So that's my question to you today. Who would you like to see on this show? Who would you like me to interview, for example? Is there anyone that you can think of that maybe has some knowledge about scoliosis that would be interesting to chat to? And what topics would you like me to cover? So, hi Laura, thank you so much from Buenos Aires. And Laura has been a weekly regular guest. You've been so super supportive. So, thank you so much, Laura. Let me know what you would like to see. That's the question I just asked. I don't know if you heard it, but um, who would you like to see as an interview guest? What topics would you like me to cover? Sorry, I am losing my words today. Hello, Sunshine at Heart. How are you? Um, so yes, let me know if you are new to this show. I know Laura is not. But yes, any suggestions of things that you might want to see a little bit more of, please let me know. So today, that was a long introduction, but today I am going to talk about some posture hacks and some things that I have certainly kind of discovered for myself and my scoliosis over the last years, especially when I've been really kind of researching this topic a lot more. Um, and we're going to talk about sitting, we're going to talk about standing, and then we're going to talk about sleeping positions as well. So feel free to let me know if you have any questions. I will go through them in this order, and I'm just going to have a little look at who's here. So hi, Jody. Jody is from Wisconsin. Lovely. Um, Lovely. It's Monja from Austria. Nice. Would love to an interview with Elise Browning Miller. I know I've been trying for ages, so I did interview her before, but she was at that time she was in London and her internet connection was really bad, so the audio isn't very good. Um, but I've been trying to get her to come on this show, but she's such a busy lady. But I will try again. I will try again. Right. Hi, Dolly from Utah. Welcome. Kavita is here. Hi, Kavita. Now, Kavita won a place on my Yoga for Scoliosis practice transformation, which is my course coming up in January. So, congratulations, Kavita. I'm sure you'll really enjoy this. Good. Jody's saying, I'm very interested in today's topic, but we'll have to watch the replay. Have to go to work now. Fair enough. It will be there afterwards for you. I really appreciate you coming to say hello though, because this makes it much more fun for me as well and much more interesting, I think, if we can have a little bit of a conversation. But completely understand work, more important. Feel free to watch it afterwards. So hi Priya. Priya is from India. Ankit is from India. Kavita is from India. There you go. You have a little bit of a connection here going on. Right. Shall we get to it then? So I'm going to take my cardigan off. I know, I realize I'm not going to win any fashion awards today. But I am wearing my special top here with the scoliosis, and it just makes it a lot easier to see. Normally I wouldn't wear anything underneath, but it's really cold. It's really chilly here in the UK right now. Right. Good. So feel free to keep the questions coming. I will have a look in the chat whenever I can, and then in the meantime, I'll be kind of going back and forth and demonstrating as well. Hi, Diana, and hi, Karen, as well, another regular. Right, let's talk about sitting then to get started with, and I think we're going to start with sitting in a chair before we talk about anything else, because that's where we should be usually be sitting. So I'm going to get my chair, and this is not a yoga chair, this is just a completely regular chair, and I'm going to sit down. Right, and basically I just want to sit down to talk to you for a moment. I'm going to get my little floating spine here, because what is really important before we get into kind of changing things with scoliosis is that we understand that curvatures in the spine are good. And you hear me going on about this quite a lot in this show, in this back chat all the time. So we have a natural inward curve in the spine. This one is a little bit flat because he's been hanging on his stand there for a while. This is looking from the side. So this is inward, outward, and inward again. Yes, so looking from the back here, he does have a straight spine, but we can give him a little bit of a scoliosis, in which case he would be like this. Yes, but what I was saying was about the sideward curvature. So very important to address this first. There we go. Before we make any other adjustments. So when you sit in your chair, and you can try this obviously right now with me. Again, I'm sorry, I'm not winning any fashion awards today, but it was comfort over style, I'm afraid. So what you want to first of all make sure is that when you sit, that the natural curves of your spine, that they are still present, right? So very often what happens is we sit in a chair, we sit all the way back, and then we kind of go like this. Now, this might be kind of the relaxed way of sitting. However, for the spine, this creates a lot of pressure and a lot of tension, especially here in the lumbar vertebrae. They don't like this position. And it might feel kind of that you're relaxing in the shoulders, and you might feel, oh, this kind of takes a lot more effort. Yes, because you need to train your muscles to be able to sit upright. So I would suggest that you come forwards a little bit more, and then explore if you can tilt your pelvis a little bit further forwards. Now, if you have a spinal fusion in your lumbar spine, this is not going to work for you, obviously, but those of you who don't have a fusion in that area, you will kind of notice where this point is, and maybe you just play around with tipping your pelvis forwards and backwards, and then find the place that is in between. And you can probably notice there'll be one point where you can lengthen up through the spine a little bit more. And that is probably your ideal position. So also just one thing here, my hips are either in level with, same level as my knees, or they're slightly higher. So that's another thing. Sometimes chairs are a little bit too low, or they can be too high. So make sure that you adjust them. Also, if you are quite short and your feet don't touch the ground, then you definitely want something underneath your feet so that they can be flat. So this is just looking from the side. Now with sitting, and again, I will show you my little adjustments for scoliosis in a moment. Sitting in general isn't great for us, right? Any kind of static position that we spend a lot of time in is not a good posture. So even if you sit in the most amazing long position here, which is probably not sustainable, it's not great. So make sure to stand up, to do a little bit of moving the hips from side to side, walking around as much as you can. If you're sitting for long periods of time, you might want to consider like changing it up, maybe sitting on a gym ball or something like that for a while, or a different chair that makes you sit slightly different, that you're not always sitting in exactly the same way, and getting up obviously as much as possible. Right, I'll have a little look at my chat and then I'll show you some other things. Good. Maria is saying, will you talk about posture after surgery too? This is a little bit more tricky because I feel that's so individual, because not everyone has got the same type of fusion, but I would just say make sure that you're really well supported. And I'm going to show you what I mean by that in a moment. This is not the best chair, by the way. I should have really taken an office chair, but we're going to use our imagination. Kavita is saying, when we don't see ourselves in the mirror, how do we find a balanced position? Standing. So yes, we're going to have a look at that when we talk about the standing position. Laura is saying, straight backs of chairs are the worst to me. Yes, absolutely. Absolutely. And, you know, this could be for different reasons, but most people kind of tend to slump into the chair. So I'm going to take a couple of blankets here and see a couple of things that you can do to adjust. So obviously the obvious thing, and probably most of you know as well, is to use something in your lower back to support your lower back. Now, this is not a good chair, right? This is not the preferred way of sitting, because if I put the blanket here, it's probably not going to stay. But this is where I would put it, and I sit back a little bit more, put it into my lower back, not all the way down, but a little bit higher, to be able to sit supported. So like this, I don't have to hold myself there, but I can have a little bit of a rest here into the back of the chair. There's things that you can get to put over your the seat of your car, for example, or your office chair as well, that will have a lumbar support. So that's just one thing just to keep in mind. I'm going to turn around for the scoliosis adjustment, because that's why you're here. So the other thing is, obviously, we have sorted out the natural curves of the spine. Now we need to sort out that sideward curvature of the spine now. So S-curves are always going to be the most complicated. If you have just one curvature, you'll probably notice that when you sit, there will be more weight into one side of the sitting bones than the other. And Karen, for example, I know Karen because we've been working one-to-one via Zoom together. So I know that she's got a left thoracolumbar curve. So I would imagine, Karen, that you feel like there is more weight on your left sitting bone, right? In which case, you could try and support that left side of the sitting bones with a blanket. So I'm just going to bring, and basically this raises the left hip a little bit more and kind of evens this imbalance out. This is the same for lumbar curves. So if you have a dominant lumbar curve, then you can do exactly the same as well. And just try it out and see if it's helpful or not, and see if that helps to keep the other side of the waist a little bit longer. So I, for example, have a left lumbar, right thoracic curve, but my main curve is the lumbar curve. So this is actually feels quite good and quite supported for me. So I do use this sometimes. Now with the thoracic curve, there's not much that you can do in terms of the hips to level this out. So you have to kind of adjust in a slightly different way. But this is definitely one tool that you can use, simply raising the side of the sitting bones that is convex. The other one is if you have quite a large hump, don't like that word, but I still haven't found a better one, mountain, I sometimes call it. You know what I mean, the more bulky side. For example, on your left side, if you have a left side sticking out to the back and you sit back into your chair, what you could do is just support that left side a little bit more, and kind of this gives you a little bit of a derotation actually, which is, you know, it's more stronger if you come to lying down on the ground, but this is another way of adjusting this pose. What you have to be mindful of is that you don't start to arch then more into your right side. So it's a little bit more complicated, a little bit more tricky. But I've had a lot of people that found this quite helpful as well. Good. So I'm going to have a little check in. Right. Sunshine at Heart is saying she is using a wedge to avoid pain. She's saying this in German, but ta-da, I do speak German. So yes, that's exactly what I was just showing. I was just showing it basically DIY with a blanket. So yeah, you can use a wedge as well, but I find actually a softer surface is more comfortable. Laura is saying, I used to carry an inflatable cushion in my purse. It worked. This is another thing that I use sometimes. It's one of those squashy balls. I don't know if anyone has ever used that. But I do like it when I sit cross-legged, for example. It just, yeah, it makes the whole experience a little bit more comfortable. And you can sit just on the edge to bring your lumbar spine into a more neutral position. Good. Priya is saying, what type of chair and mattress would you suggest for lumbar scoliosis and also for neck pain? I cannot recommend any specific chairs or mattresses. I do think this is very personal. If anyone else has got any opinions on that, feel free to type it into the chat. In terms of an office chair, I would look for a lumbar support, but that also kind of depends on your general patterns of how you're sitting. So especially if you tend to round, if you tend to have quite a flat back, then I would really get something that has a nice lumbar support, but you might not fall into this category. So yes, so it's quite individual, and I would just try out a few different ones in the shop, obviously, and then make a decision. Okay, Ankit is saying, will you please guide me through the right poses while studying? Do you mean in sitting? What to do while you're sitting? Karen says that makes sense. Good. Sometimes I don't know if my rambling makes sense. Liz is saying, hello, Christine. I've really enjoyed all your back chats. Oh, thank you so much, Liz. And yes, Merry Christmas to you too. Please do let me know if there is anything you would like to see apart from me, obviously, on these back chats, and which topics you would like me to cover, as I'm taking a little bit of a break over Christmas, but I will be back afterwards. Hi, Christina. Christina says she's a bit late to join, but you're here. I used to have a rocking kneeling chair. Yes, I know what you mean. They're like some sort of Swedish, it's not an IKEA chair, but I know what you mean. I love those as well. I haven't got one, but I might consider it again. Ankit is saying both sitting and lying. Debbie's saying, I found Feldenkrais exercise to be great adjunct to yoga for my scoliosis. I now sit equally on my sit bones. Yes, absolutely. And sometimes we need more of it and sometimes we need less. Good. Good morning. How do I sit with an anterior pelvic tilt? So you're saying your pelvis is already tilted backwards, tilted forwards. So you want a little bit more of a kind of bringing it back to neutral. And that's what I was saying, you know, when we first started. You need to play around with this pelvis position a little bit and tipping the pelvis forwards and backwards until you find the somewhere in between. So yes, so for someone who's got quite a more of an anterior tilt, so who's got kind of more of a sticky out bottom, you can actually do the opposite. So you could actually sit a little bit further back and just kind of use the, especially if you have got quite a straight chair, that might be beneficial. If you're the other way, then you might have to sit a little bit further forward. So again, it's very difficult for me to suggest something that works for everyone because everyone has got slightly different patterns. But I do just want to say something about my thoracic scoliosis. For those people who might be studying and sitting on a desk, at a desk, for long periods of time, notice how you collapse, right? Notice how you relax. When you relax, what do you do? How do you kind of slouch if you have a preferred way? You will notice that you have a pattern. Is it over to one side? Is it that you cross a leg over? Very often with scoliosis, we like to cross the leg because our spine really likes twisting. So notice some of these things. And then the first thing to do, if you have established that you have kind of a pattern, the safest thing, the easiest thing is to do the opposite, right? Because then you already know that you're doing something that kind of goes against the curvature of your spine. So for example, for me, it feels much better to lift the left leg over the right. So I simply swap it around. So I bring the right leg over the left and see how that, it feels really awkward, but that then I know that I'm going against the scoliosis curvature. The other thing is also if you have a thoracic scoliosis, for example, let's say you've got a right thoracic like this one here, and you've got something here that you could rest your arm on, then your resting position could be kind of this way, that your arm is supported and then you rest into a productive position, as you can see here from the shirt, rather than the other way. You can see that's where you would make the scoliosis worse. So this way would make it a little bit better. Let me know if that makes sense. I know this is a bit more difficult. You would have to kind of pile things up around you. But again, this is something you have to be a little bit creative. Good. I plan to buy an office chair for €900, but don't need it anymore to do the wedge I use. Bought after hip surgery. I can highly recommend it. Yes, great. And I think there are, if you have a link, obviously feel free to put it in the comment section. We're always interested to hear about things, obviously, that work. And I'm going to move on to standing or sleeping. Put it in the chat. What do we want first? We're going to talk about standing or sleeping first. I'll let you decide because there are a few things to say about both of them. And I'll have a little look to see what else is happening here in the chat. So hopefully this makes sense. Again, it's good to notice what your pattern is, right? And not just in terms of your X-ray and what you can see or what you've been diagnosed with, but what you notice about yourself. And that might be in a mirror, or it might just be looking down and noticing if you have a preferred way of doing things. Priya is saying standing. Thank you, Priya. You're the winner. You've answered first. So that's what we're going to start with. And Kit is saying, I have the exact opposite lumbar curvature to yours. Yes, and all curvatures are different. So that's why it's very difficult to suggest something that works for everyone. So I'm going to bring this up a little bit higher so that you can see me standing up. So standing up, let's see, there we go, that's better. Standing up, again, notice your patterns. And I usually, when I do a one-to-one session, the first thing that we do is I have someone kind of walk on the spot a little bit and then stand without thinking about it, or maybe walk around the room a little bit and then stand, not like a yogi, but try to stand how you would actually usually stand without kind of being aware of that or how you're standing, and notice if there are any patterns. So I can see I have trained myself obviously not to do this, but my right foot has a tendency of wanting to turn out. So I know this about myself. I know that there is a little bit of a exterior rotation in my right leg, and that the arch of the foot is slightly dropping as well. So that's one thing that I noticed. The other thing that you want to notice is where is your weight? Again, just like in sitting, do you collapse into one side or the other? So you could shift your weight just from side to side, forwards and backwards. And then find the place that kind of feels centered. So where have you got equal weight on both feet? And we're just exploring and we're noticing that. See if that feels any different. And then the most important thing is to lengthen up towards the ceiling, the crown of the head. So you don't have to think about, oh, I need to, that was the wrong way. I need to create space here, create space there at the same time when you're standing. No, you don't. You just have to lengthen up through the crown of the head, and it will probably sort itself out already a little bit. Then the next thing you want to do is again notice how you collapse. So when you rest, how would you rest? Again, if you have a thoracic curve and you know this about you, if you rest somewhere, for example, if you have something, I have a mental piece here which you can't see, but you could rest your elbow on the side, for example. That would be the wrong side for me. But you could do that on your concave side, definitely. Notice if you stand on one hip, if you kind of collapse into one hip like this. So lumbar, for my left lumbar curve, I know that my hip is slightly shifted over to the right. I don't even know now which one I prefer. I was going to say one of them feels really natural, but none of them do. I think I've just been avoiding it so much that I don't even know anymore. But notice if you have a pattern of if you're doing this and if you're collapsing somewhere, chances are that you probably need to do the opposite, or safest way is avoiding it altogether, lengthening through the crown of the head. And again with standing like a soldier is not a great posture either. So the best posture is a moving one. So, make some movements around, maybe coming back to a little bit of stillness, but there is always something happening. You're not just standing completely still. And this is a little bit easier than sitting, I find, because naturally we're moving around. I'm sorry, I'm looking for my remote control. There we are. Good. Let's see. So Monia has given us the link for that wedge cushion. So we can have a look at that. Right. Does that make sense about standing? Is there anything else? I'm kind of rushing. I feel like I'm rushing through this. But a lot of it is so individual, and I would really have to see how you're standing already to give you some suggestions here. So let me know if that makes sense, if you're still here, or if I have frozen completely. And then I'm going to Yes, hopefully that link works. I think everyone can, or whoever wants it can just copy it and then um, paste it into their browser if they want to have a look. And I will definitely have a look at this as well. I was going to get one of those wobbly cushions as well, and see if that works. Christina's saying, agree completely, don't like sitting. No, sitting is the worst thing, isn't it? And I know Christina is a yoga teacher as well, and we sit quite a lot on the floor. And that's another one which is tricky. Your messages are getting delayed. I know there is always a little bit of a delay. Okay, when standing long periods, my bump begins to bother a lot. Okay, I know what you mean. I was gonna say, are you pregnant? It is like carrying a heavy backpack in that side. Yes, I get it. I know what you mean. It's kind of that it takes over that tightness, and you just want to collapse into it, right? This is again why it's important to reset. So I really like, that's why I like yoga, right? To balance out what else is going on in my life. And that might mean if I have been standing for long periods of time, I do a little yoga sequence that helps me to release some of that tension. But then obviously long term, we want to make sure that we strengthen as well. Good. Let's talk about sleeping. I'm going to have a little rest on my yoga mat. I'm going to put Mr. Spine to the side so you can see. Right, so first of all, we need to establish what is working already. So do you sleep on your back or do you sleep on your side? I am already saying I'm not saying sleep on your tummy because that is never going to work, right? That is the worst position for sleeping. So we're just going to try and avoid this. I know a lot of people do like sleeping on their stomach, but it's just not very good for the back. So if you, and again, this is not super realistic here because it's a hard surface. And obviously in a bed, you would kind of sink into the mattress a little bit. I have to move my plant out of the way as well. But if you sleep on your tummy, probably something like this will happen. Yes, you will bend one knee up and then you'll turn your head to the side. Now this really compresses here the lower back. It's asymmetric, not a great way of sleeping, and especially if you then stay in this position for whatever, for 6-7 hours, you'll wake up and your back might not be happy. So that's the time to reconsider maybe how you're sleeping. So sleeping on the side is much better, and sleeping on the back is probably it's the most symmetrical for the back, obviously, but also I find the most difficult to kind of to sleep in. So what is much more important than how exactly you sleep is that you sleep. So much more that you are comfortable. Also, I want to note to want to say this, and I'm just saying this because I have a video out there about sleeping poses, sleeping positions, and you can find it on my YouTube channel. It's got loads and loads of views. It's gone a little bit crazy. But I just want to say that sleeping is not going to make your scoliosis worse, even if you sleep in a really bad position. The worst thing that will happen is that you have pain and that you wake up in pain, but it's not going to actually make your scoliosis curvature worse, as far as I know. And I have asked a lot of people about this. So, you can eliminate this kind of fear around this already, that for some reason in your sleep, your scoliosis will get worse. It won't. So let's just clear this up straight away, and then I'll show you what we can do lying on the side. So if you're lying on the side, you want to make sure that your head is in line with the rest of the spine. I'm going to try and take my arms out of the way so you can see the curvature here on the t-shirt. So with my left lumbar scoliosis here, and this is sinking down now, this part here is really compressed, right? And this one is overstretched here. And I tend to get pain in the convex area of my curvature. Let me know in the chat if that's you as well, and it might be different. So I would support the convex side with a blanket or something soft. You don't want it. I wouldn't sleep on a yoga bolster because it's usually too hard. So it should be comfortable. But then you can see if you can see, that kind of supports that curvature a little bit more. And yeah, it's a much better position here. So Karen, for example, you could bring this higher up, obviously. So she's got a thoracolumbar curve, so it would be on the peak of the curvature. If you have thoracic, it would be even higher up. So you always want to think about what's sinking down when you're lying on your side. Can I support it a little bit more? Now, when you sleep on the other side, if you have an S-curve, you might support different areas of the spine. And if you don't have an S-curve, you just wouldn't support anything. Right. Does that make sense? Again, I'm trying to keep this relatively concise. But let me know if that makes sense. Okay, where are we? I have to lie down to push bump back in. Okay. What do you think about hanging when possible during standing? I mean, to use natural props like the top of a doorway. Oh, I love hanging. I love it. Laura is saying she has to leave. Bye, Laura. Thank you so much for tuning in. Yes, I do like hanging. And I have actually one of those. I have so many props, right? I'm going to show you. There we go. I've got one of these things that you can put in the doorway, and you just attach it, and then you can hang from it. Very useful. So yes, that's what I do as well. If I feel compressed, if I feel like, you know, everything is kind of sinking together, then yes, I use hanging to get a little bit more length. Good. What's your take on doing stretching hanging exercise on a wall bar? That's kind of what, yeah, that's the same thing, isn't it? It can be helpful. I wouldn't do completely free hanging because then you're just hanging into your shoulders, right? But if you are, if you still have support, or if you still have the feet on the ground, you can use this and then lengthen kind of in opposite directions. If you bend your knees and then lengthening through the tailbone, that can be really useful. Okay, Christina's saying I use pillow between my legs, helps with SI joint. Yes, I agree. Same here, and I'm looking around for my blanket. So that's another thing that is very, very helpful. If you sleep on your side, a little support here, and then bring something kind of between the legs like this, probably even higher. I would probably have it even that the knee is in line with the top hip, and that can be really comfortable and really useful. So that's about side sleeping. Obviously, if you sleep on your back, you don't have all these problems, and I wouldn't go crazy with lots of props. I would just make sure that you have enough, but not too much underneath the head. And you might want to have something underneath the backs of the knees. more than that, probably kind of a cushion or something like that when you're lying down, a little bit like Shavasana as well. But yeah, if you're lying down, you do not want to end up here where the head is kind of lifted up too far, but you still want to keep some length. So think about your Shavasana position, and that's what you want to do when you're sleeping as well. Now, if you can actually sleep like this is another question. I cannot, so that's why I sleep on my side. But you might be better at it than I am. Good. Lovely. Monya saying that's very helpful information. Good. Excellent. Karen is saying, sorry, just missed 10 minutes as I had to take a work call. No worries, Karen. You know, you can look at it afterwards. Yes, so I've just covered the sleeping positions. Before that, we did the standing, so you can just have a look at that. Good. Lovely. So let me know if there is anything else. If that all made sense, and if you are just joining in, if you're just joining, I've talked about some tips about sitting with scoliosis. I talked about standing, what to look out for, and I talked about sleeping positions as well, and kind of did like a really speedy going through all these positions. But just to make it clear again, that scoliosis is very individual. No scoliosis curve is the same as the next. There might be other conditions as well. So it's very difficult for me to kind of give advice that will work for everyone, obviously, right here. But I'm just kind of sharing a few things that have worked for me. Again, I'm a yoga teacher, so that is my thing. I'm not a physiotherapist. I'm not a medical professional. I'm not a doctor. But I have been working with people that suffer from scoliosis for a long time. And yes, I feel like I have a very good understanding of the condition, and I have seen lots of different cases as well, and different ways of adjusting things. So basically, if you are looking for more kind of tailored advice, then you might want to find someone in your local area who knows about scoliosis. Obviously, who can work one-to-one with you in person is the best way. Via Zoom is another option, and I do sessions via Zoom. And then I've got a online course running as well in January, which you are very welcome to join, where you learn how to adjust and adapt your yoga practice to your scoliosis curvature. Ankit is saying, is handstand good? I'm not going to demonstrate, by the way. Oh, I've got something in my eye. Very annoying. This is the part where like my little bit of mascara will go all over the place. So handstand is not bad. Headstand is probably is worse because you put the pressure obviously on the head and on the neck. Handstand, the weight will be on the hands, so you can use those to kind of to make some little adjustments. So I don't have a problem with handstand unless you have wrist problems. For scoliosis itself, I don't think it's worse than standing on your feet. It's not going to make it's not going to exaggerate your scoliosis. However, you do need to have a certain amount of strength, obviously. Well, first of all, to be able to do a handstand. So if you can actually be in a handstand, you obviously do have that strength. But then when you are in it, you might want to have a look or have someone else have a look to see if there are patterns of imbalance that you're creating. And this is really interesting. So this is really, really good to have someone else or have someone take a picture of you in a handstand and see if you're leaning over to one side. That is really good and give you some feedback on it. Feet up is another one. Yes, I use a feet up as well. For anyone who doesn't know what that is, I'll get it out quickly. We've got a couple of minutes. So this is the feet up here, and you basically stick your head in and then have your feet up. Simple, but it's a great way of doing an inversion without putting any pressure, certainly, onto your head and onto your neck. So it's a great way. I use it for beginners who want to kind of get the confidence of being upside down in their yoga practice. But I also use it for myself sometimes, especially to get some traction in the neck. I find that really, really useful. Good. So I hope that helps. Again, feel free to let me know if there are any more topics that you want me to cover in future back chats. And I did post it on Instagram, and I posted it on Facebook as well. So you can let me know there. You can let me know here in the comments as well. Interview guests, maybe some people that you know that could be, or like medical professionals that you know that might be interesting to interview. And yes, any topics that you want me to go through. And I'll just bring up here my little course again. So for those of you who are not signed up for this yet, it's happening in January, 17th of January. And it's a 4 weeks course where you learn how to adjust your practice and adapt it to your scoliosis curvature so that your practice becomes a little bit more personalized and is not just a general practice. Good. Right. Very briefly, Bianca is asking about 5-year-old with a crazy sleeper. I wouldn't worry about if you are thinking about, how to adjust the sleeping position, I wouldn't worry about it with a 5-year-old. Again, I was saying you're not going to make the scoliosis worse. If the doctors are concerned, it's not about the sleeping, it's about everything else, and they might put him in a brace, right? But that does not have something to do with the sleeping. That's the overall kind of position. And for young children, obviously, because they're growing, it's a little bit more tricky. Good. Kavita has to go. Yes, I have to go as well. So I'm going to say goodbye in a moment. Right. So when are we meeting next? Let's see. We're going to meet next. The first back chat will be the 13th of January. So we're going to take 3 weeks off. And I'll see you on the 13th of January. Again, let me know any suggestions. And yes, have a lovely Christmas and Happy New Year, everyone. And I talk to you soon. Bye.